Hi, everyone. Welcome to my poster. It is titled Surprising Sounds Influence Decision Making. So now here I'll go over a bit of background to motivate the question. The capacity to respond quickly to surprising events is fundamental to adaptive behavior. And we wanted to ask a very simple question here, which is, do sensory events systematically influence decision making even when they're task irrelevant? So as an overview of our project, we ran 4 experiments online, each part 200 subjects each, and we robustly showed that incidental surprising sounds influence choice perseveration and risk-taking. So here's an overview of the methods that we used. Participants played a risky decision-making task where they had to make a repeated series of choices between either a risky gamble, which is 50-50 odds, or a safe option. And after a short delay, after their choices, they receive choice feedback whether they've won or lost. Now, the crucial bit of this paradigm is that we added tone sequences prior to every choice trial. So on a majority of trials, so on 3/4 of them, participants would hear a common tone sequence, which consisted of 6 identical tones, and that sounded like this. Now, on a minority of trials, which is 25% of them, participants will hear quite a similar sequence, but it ended in a surprising way, and it might sound like this. So crucially here, the first 5 tones are identical across common trials and oddball trials. However, for the oddball sequences, it ends in a surprising or different novel tone frequency. So that is kind of the structure and the template we use for our first 2 studies. And this is our first model-free finding, which is that surprising sounds increase switching between options. So if you see on the plot on the left, we broke down all of the trials into the trial types. So gain trial types, mixed trial types, and lost trial types. And what we see from the stair-step pattern is that participants exhibited a marked decrease in their tendency to stay with their previous choice. And the plot on the right kind of also summarizes this, where you can focus on study 1 here, where there's a significant decrease in the tendency to repeat someone's previous choice. And that also replicated in the separate study 2. The second model-free finding that we found was that surprising sounds increased risk-taking. So what we also found is that irrespective of trial type, participants seemed to gamble more for oddball trials compared to common trials. And as we see on the plot on the right, which mirrors this, in both studies, we see a positive risk-taking effect. So we took these 2 behavioral effects and tried to summarize and to measure this in a computational model. So we use as a base model Rob Rutledge's approach avoidance decision model. And to this, we added a perseveration change parameter and a gambling bias change parameter. So we took the choice switching effect that I described earlier, and we explained that using a decreased perseveration parameter. So you can see this as like the significantly negative blue bars here on both study 1 and study 2. Next, we have the risk-taking effect, and we believe that's best encompassed by or described by a positive bias towards the risky option, summarized by the orange bars on the right. So now I'm going to introduce the second part of our inquiry here, which involved our second 2 studies, which get at the question of whether the choice switching and risk-taking effects identified may be influenced by different aspects of auditory surprise. So if you remember from the previous discussion of the methods and the paradigm, was that the rare sequences ended on the rare tone. And we were wondering if we also constructed this in such a way that the rare sequences ended on a common tone. So in effect, this was kind of removing the local surprise from the rare sequences. What did this do to the 2 effects? So we found that that actually didn't reduce the perseveration effect or the choice switching effect at all, where this kind of resembles the model-free results that we saw for the first 2 studies. However, removing the local surprise from the rare sequences seemed to completely eliminate the positive gambling bias or the positive risk-taking effect that we saw in the first 2 studies. In fact, from the direction of these bars, these are mean bars, it even seemed to have reversed in direction. And this was also reflected in our model-based results, where studies 3 and 4 both seem to demonstrate an elimination of the risk-taking effect, while the local surprise of oddball trials was removed. So in conclusion, the incidental surprising sounds seem to systematically bias choice perseveration and risk-taking. And we showed that these effects are consistent across model-free and model-based analyses. Next, the perseveration and risk-taking effects seem to be separable by manipulating different aspects of auditory surprise. And now, for future directions, we think this may point to the phasic influence of neuromodulators like dopamine. And that is an interesting thing that we would continue to explore. Thank you for attending my poster.